Start us off, Carter.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talkin' Tom and Jammin' with Jerry. I'm Carter,
I'm Jerry.
and this is your go-to podcast for all things Tom and Jerry. We are going to talk about the new animated series, the new series of shorts that were made specifically for Singapore. I really should have looked that up before I committed to this bit. That bring a sort of new Ghibli style and kinetic energy to the franchise. But actually, this is Carter and Kevin Explain Football. I'm Carter,
I'm still Kevin.
and well, you said you were Jerry.
Well, that's true.
Yes, week 11 is in the books, ladies and gentlemen. Another exciting week of
Hell of
very
a
fun matchups, as we described. And I would say most of them very much lived up to the hype.
hell of a
Um,
week. Um,
while the playoff picture is still murky as always, there are a couple teams that feel like they're trending down and a couple teams trending up.
yeah, I think another just to bring it up while we're not too into things yet. We've been having some very good, like the last couple of weeks have been some very good football weeks.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say this has been a fun year. Like I know, like it hasn't really worked out for me specifically, but like I was going to say this has been a solid year of like matchups that generally live up to the hype. There have been very few. Like the only stinkers are the ones that we felt like were going to be stinkers going in.
Yeah,
Like for example, this week Cowboys Panthers, which is one we didn't like to even bother listing in our notes. I do appreciate we're also getting to that time of year where certain matchups will happen where it's like, why would we bother bringing this up?
yeah.
Uh,
It's also like it's also now we're getting to the heat of it too. We'll talk a little bit more about it when we get to the next week segment. But things like we instead of having like a slump, like an mid October to mid November slump, where it's just kind of like everyone's fucking around. We've had some solid football, and now we're gonna get into like the really heat of it.
yes, now there's actually like politics to be had about like who is going to get the top seed. Like it feels like now like the question of like divisional races and wild card races actually really matter. It's not just hypotheticals.
Yeah,
And to kick us off, your first note is the Jacksonville Jaguars hold on top. The Jaguars defeated the Titans 34-14 in a pretty thorough, just pummeling. Unfortunately, the Titans were out of it pretty early, but it allows them to keep advantage over the Houston Texans for the number one spot in the division.
yeah. No, that was more of the note of why I made this. Not because like they're clearly holding the top spot, and them playing the Titans is whatever. But
Right.
no one can sleep on the tear the Texans have been having this season. And if the Jaguars lost, it would have been, I think they would have, as of right now, the Texans would have won the tie for that number one
Oh
spot.
yes, because they did win
They
their number
won,
back, or they did win their head-to-head
they
matchup.
won
You're
match
correct.
one, yeah. So like, let's not sleep on that. That's the Jaguars have the Texans. Like the Texans' horns are right up the Jaguars' assholes. Like
Right.
one step backwards, and they could be caught.
That is why the Jaguars have this weird energy for me because again, it like yeah, they won 34-14. It's like the score you would expect for the game. Like again, they're not even they kind of just like the Titans didn't have the ball for very long. They only gave Derrick Henry 10 carries, so they're not even sticking to their usual identity.
Yeah,
Bill Levis was fine, like again, sort of what you would expect from a second round rookie with a little bit of physical upside. But at the same time, I'm like, shouldn't you guys it's weird because like the Jaguars are 7-3, but they feel like the most underwhelming of the division leaders.
hmm
They feel like the most underwhelming of the teams that are sort of in the 7-3, 8-2 sort of
it
hodgepodge.
it
Where I'm like,
feels
you guys need to
yeah.
pick it up because you're going to get trampled if you're not careful.
I, I don't want to say it feels like they don't belong, but like
Yeah, I wouldn't
if
say
if
that.
if you look at like how the season's been going, like Dolphins 7-3, people are like, oh, these are dominant. Like they're doing bad against winning teams, but these guys have been dominant. Chiefs is now 7-3, suckers. Same thing.
Hmm.
Ravens and Browns also like just dominant performance after dominant performance, and like, well, actually, Ravens dominant performances. Browns have been getting fucking lucky, and then it
Yeah,
feels,
that's dark magic or
yeah,
something.
it feels like the Jaguars have been like, despite being at least on the same level of losses and mostly wins, it feels like you're just being nice to your friend's kid brother to make them feel included. It's like, oh yeah, Jacksonville's also the leader of a division. They've been
And
doing
you know what's so,
they've been
what's so
winning
funny about it?
games like pretty
Oh yeah,
solidly. And it's just
yeah.
when
Like
they
when they
lose,
win, it's emphatic.
yeah, when they lose, they actually, with the exception of when they play the Chiefs, but when they lose, they lose pretty badly.
You know, and it is funny because there are alternate timelines where, like, you know, the Colts are on their butts instead of the Texans, and it really is, or like, you know, all the division, like the AFC South is the embodiment of like expectations defining vibes and like tone because the Houston Texans are 6-4. They've kind of had a few like head scratcher losses. The Indianapolis Colts are 5-5, but like, you know, they're rallying in spite of losing their sort of like star new quarterback. And for both of them, I'm like, oh, you sweet baby boys. Oh, you.
Yeah.
And then the Jacksonville Jaguars are 7-3, leading the division. They're only a game behind the Ravens for the number one seed. And I'm like, you fucking donkeys.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, why aren't you guys better? Why isn't Trevor Lawrence playing like a top 5 quarterback right now? Why is he just fine?
Yeah,
You guys have hype.
it's
There was no
so
Texans hype.
yeah, it's so weird. Like Texans got this underdog story going, and Jaguars, you can't sleep on them.
Underachiever story.
They seem like they're underachieving, but they're doing good.
Right, that's the thing. They're good, but it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah, they've won every away game so far
I
this
think
season.
that is a which really underlines that they should probably just move the team. But um, well, that's going to happen eventually. Someone's getting moved. There's way too many teams in like the southeast of America. Someone's going to have to take the lumps. But
The
that's a nice
Bozeman,
way.
Montana,
God, why would even
Montana.
put it? Well, no, they're going to try and push him to Europe, but I feel like after this year, that
Oh,
experiment has emphatically failed. So probably, I don't know, maybe Mexico City as like a compromise for wanting the international market. I don't know,
I
but
think
that's speculation for the off season.
yeah, I think they're gonna stick to the celebrity games or try and make a couple more celebrity like abroad games and then really not
Mhm.
make a thing about it. All right.
Yes,
Anyway,
but to our sweet baby boys, CJ Stroud had kind of objectively a bad game, but still kicked ass. So
yeah, let's talk
the
stats first. He went 23
yes,
for 23 for 37, 336 yards, 2 tutties, and 3 interceptions.
a quarterback rating of 41.4. I did go through the highlights and make sure I saw all the interceptions. One of them, to be fair, was a tipped ball. Like, okay, that's like not really a quarterback's fault. That's more like chaos on the play.
Yeah.
There was, and one of the interceptions was in the red zone, throwing into the end zone. Sort of an arm arrogance, like I can zip it in here when no one else does. And he had like 7 plays that should have been picked off that he just threw it so hard it got to the receiver. So I'm like, well, maybe you're right. Maybe I'm wrong here. And then the third one was just kind of like the rookie, like trying to figure out what you can and can't get away with. They weren't the worst interceptions in the world, but they definitely had that like, oh, welcome to the NFL, rookie.
Yeah.
But then like basically a play after he gets hurt and Davis Mills has to come in. And I'm holding my breath because I'm like, no, please no. The Texans are finally fun. We can't go back to the Davis Mills like era.
Uh,
He comes back in and throws one of the most incredible touchdown passes you'll see all year to Tank Dell.
Yes, it was gorgeous. I watched it. It was amazing, and
Yes,
I loved it.
absolute moon ball. Tank Dell was able to just reach up and get it and roll into the back of the end zone. Simply one of the most beautiful throws we have. And like again, these are the kind of games you have to win if you want to be like a good team because the Cardinals have been scrappy all year and like most teams with a lot of rookies on them, a lot of young teams, this would have been an easy like we flubbed this up game. And no, the defense held the line for the entire fourth quarter. I actually think the Cardinals played fine. Like Kyler Murray looks good.
Um,
I actually, and like we're going to talk about this when we talk about Chicago. I really think they should just stick with Kyler Murray now,
I,
but
I,
I'll talk more about that later.
I said it once. I'll say it again. The Cardinals are the best worst team. They do not know how to
Truly,
finish in the slightest, but they still don't suck like entirely. Um,
right. I feel like, assuming in the very likely chance they get the number one overall pick, I feel like we could go through every year, look at the team that had the number one overall pick, and I'd be like, if they all played each other, who would win? And it really feels like the Cardinals would easily
oh,
get that
absolutely.
title. Like, you know, last year's Bears team, they beat them. The the various Browns teams that had like 2 wins over 3 years, absolutely.
Yeah, the
Um,
various Jaguars teams in the
yeah, the
pre-Trevor
back-to-back
Lawrence eras.
Jaguars teams, absolutely. Yeah, I'm like, I would take the Cardinals. They at least have some talent.
I think,
But yeah,
yeah,
that's
they got the case of just having. They're in a tough division, and they just got hit with a
mm,
tough schedule because they're playing the NFC East, where the first 3 games of the season were all 2 NFC East teams, and then the last one's within the final couple weeks. But it's like they got the
mm.
49ers twice, and as much as I don't like the 49ers, can't deny, good team. They got the AFC North, which is stupidly competitive.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also like the Seahawks twice and stuff. And it's just kind of like a real crapshoot for them. I think
Oh yeah.
if you swapped out the AFC East and the or AFC North and NFC East for like both South divisions, I feel like they wouldn't be a 2-4 team.
Honestly, I hate to say
Also,
it, you might not be wrong.
they are
Like,
they played significantly more games than to be 2-4. What are they? 2-9.
yes,
Nowhere
no,
close.
but yeah, that's what I mean. Like, it really comes. It also comes down to scheduling stuff because this is enough of a vibes team where if they were in the NFC South, I think they'd at least compete for.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like,
Oh,
come on, they
NFC
could at
South.
least beat this Buccaneers team once.
Yeah, the NFC South would like if they were there instead. I feel like they wouldn't be dominating the division, but we wouldn't be. They wouldn't be in their current position.
But yeah, for the Texans, it's, in the metaphor of our sweet baby boys, they got in a bit of a tussle at school. They have a couple bruises, but they did good, kid. Pat them on the back and get ready for next week.
Yeah.
Um, the 49ers remind everyone what's up. So I don't really have a lot to say about this game. This was the one game I'm like, I do not feel like watching any, like, guys, I try to be a little professional and watch like highlights of the games after they happen, just to make sure I'm not like completely talking out of my butt
Yeah.
about like what happened in the game. Like I have a general sense of like, well, here's some of the interesting stuff that happened. Here's how the teams looked.
Yeah.
I did not watch really any of this game that wasn't on Red Zone. But
It.
San Francisco finally continues its winning trend again, winning 27-14. Brock Purdy, 21 of 25, 333 yards, 3 touchdowns. Christian McCaffrey, he did score a touchdown. So he's a little behind the pace he needs to be on to break the touchdown record, but still looking good. And yeah, this game was, it turns out when everyone's finally healthy again, the 49ers have a really good offense. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. Like, I feel like I was a little too hard on Brock Purdy before, mostly when he was being put in the MVP category. But, like, at the end of the day, in terms of this era of 49ers, the Shanahan era, he is the best at what Shanahan expects. Like, he's better than Jimmy. He's better than Lance. He's better than, like, anyone they put in there to run this machine. He's doing it better than anyone's done it before. And incidentally, like looking ahead to the draft, it's kind of a shame they can't get away with trading a bunch of picks to climb up the draft board again. Because, like, if you really wanted to increase the ceiling, Drake May is kind of the perfect quarterback for this offense. Because, like, compared to Caleb Williams, Drake May is more like, he's like if you asked a robot to make a quarterback in terms of, like, tall, just athletic enough, strong arm, follows
Mm-hmm.
the play, it reads the play
Yeah.
well. Like, he's the kind of guy Shanahan should have been going for, not someone who was more of a developmental prospect. But I digress. The point is, I'm like, yeah, I'll just give Purdy his roses in terms of like, yes, Shanahan wants something very specific for his team, and this is the guy who's getting it done. We'll see if it works in the playoffs.
Yeah. No, it's
And
the 49ers is a solid team, and they went on a very weird slump.
mm,
Another this is kind of a little bit of a fun fact about their schedule. The next 5 games they have are all bird-based teams.
oh, that's kind of fun.
Yeah, so
That was my
if only it was made their schedule's made a little bit differently,
mm,
where they had both Cardinals games here, and then because it's Seahawks, Eagles, Seahawks, Cardinals, Ravens. If they could have had like if they had like the Cardinals next there, and then some other bird team again, because I think that's all of them. I think that is the entire gauntlet of bird-based teams.
I'd have to double check. I feel like the majority, well, like the
Falcons.
most of anyone's
You're missing the
genre.
Falcons.
Yeah.
So if they did a Falcons game as the second to last game of the season, and then their last game was the Cardinals, that would have been like an entire month fighting birds.
Oh God.
You can only punch
The
so many
American
birds.
dream, shooting birds. You're going to need a really big rock. Also, fun fact: there's only one bird team in the AFC, and then there is 1, 2, 3, 4. The other 4 are in the other conference.
Look at us mentioning fun facts about just random shit.
Oh yeah. But yes, that actually leads us into another bird team.
Yes.
Do you want to have the floor for the Eagles?
Yes, I would like the floor. I'm not gonna try and make it too much of a thing, because it was a game to watch.
Yes, it lived up. Again, all the games we want to be good have consistently been good.
As a diehard Eagles fan, I didn't. There were obviously parts that I didn't like when the Chiefs did good versus the Eagles doing good. But what a rematch! Like, first off, let's just talk about the basics. You're in the home. The home team is the Super Bowl winner. Great setting. It's even honestly just happens to line up with the Chiefs being like their stadium's Arrowhead, which possible hot take, one of the best NFL stadiums out there.
I feel like a lot of people agree with that.
All right, cool. So like arena, check. They nailed that. Fan base with like the Kelsey Brothers podcast and stuff. There was like a nice. It was clearly not a game played in like L.A. or one of the Florida games where people happen to be vacationing in these locations, and it's just like, we're going on vacation or going to this conference, and the Eagles game plays at that time. Let's go see it. Fuck it, why not? Because like nobody has a home field advantage, or no team has the home field at SoFi. Like Rams and Chargers, no, get out of here.
Right.
You're gonna have tourist, the opposing team's fans, and just football fans. You're lucky if you got a sprinkling of their fans in there. But so there's that. Then you got a little bit of you got the setting. First off, Monday night game, great time slot pick. I know I know I'm the booking guy, and I've gotten upset at some time slot choices. Great time slot. The only other appropriate time slot in my opinion for this game would have been Monday or Sunday Night Football.
Right.
If it wasn't Sunday Night Football, it had to be Monday Night Football. There was no chance it could be any other spot in my opinion. So that's like another solid check. And you got the story. You got Kelsey Bowl 2, Andy Reid, who's who was what is it? The Chiefs never lost when Andy Reid's played the Eagles, or when it's Andy Reid's been involved with Eagles versus Chiefs. The Chiefs have never lost, or something, some weird statistic like that,
Hmm.
or maybe like Andy Reid's never lost. I don't know. Um, awesome, like awesome thing. Plus, just a Super Bowl rematch. Like 6, 9 months ago, 10 months ago. I don't know how long ago. Not that good at math. Um,
Basically a calendar year ago now,
yeah,
because it would have been February,
yeah,
right? So about 3 months.
yeah, yeah. Like first off, there's like so it's like it's still very fresh. And while the teams are different teams than that game, it's still fresh. And it's not like the Rams who, after their Super Bowl, clearly dropped in quality. Because these teams are both
Mm.
dominating their conferences. Or
Right. For all the hand wringing about, like, oh, neither of these teams looks as good as they're supposed to be, it is like, look, offense is just down all around the NFL.
yeah,
If anything, I'm feeling way more positive about both of their defenses.
yeah, no, it was good, and it has potential to be the next Super Bowl too, based off of
Mhm.
their current records. It has potential to go well for them again, and it's just like what a setting. Also, rain game. Loved that.
I did not realize it was going to be raining that much.
It was it was raining a lot, and I feel like that's one of those games where it's just like I don't want for the Super Bowl because I want it to be played on the most neutral ground. You're if they played on grass, it would have been a muddy game. It would have
Oh,
just been
God. That would have been a.
brutally muddy, and that would have been awesome. And
Oof.
but it's
They would have
just
had to slop that one up.
yeah, it would have been a slop fest, and that would have been awesome.
Hmm.
Bring back grass, but it was just there was so much stuff leading up to it and building it to be a great game, and it was a great game.
Oh, yeah. For me, like, I would, one, like, Hertz's stats weren't that impressive, but he really had to gut that out. Like, this Chiefs defense
Yeah,
is inexplicable. I feel like it's was underrated among Philly fans. It is honestly, a
it
probably top
was
five defense.
it was a
So to just
very
get 21 points,
yeah, it was a brutal defense. Like
yeah,
watching
like you had to grind out to get all of that.
yeah
Um, I was really impressed. Like, well, I was impressed with like the difference between the Eagles defense and the Bills defense at full strength is even when the Bills defense is at full strength, they don't have closers. That's always been the problem. We don't have any like our D line doesn't like finish the job, and
oh
those
yeah
entire last two drives were nothing but just completely altering the play and making it untenable for the Chiefs to win. A lot of the like a lot of I don't know, a lot of the discourse is being taken up by the Chiefs wide receivers, and I do feel like it's like okay, they really have reached like I don't know it like the Mahomes Chiefs have these eras where it was like Hill and Kelsey together. It's like that's the pairing. Then they
that's the
lose to the
pairing.
Bucks in the Super Bowl and realize we need to pivot off of this, go much shorter yardage, and focus on protecting Mahomes.
Hmm.
And then like it feels like we're reaching the natural end of that where it's like no, no, we need at least one other receiver who's a
Yeah,
dog. I
I
like
think
I will say I'm a little shocked at like finally getting to sit down and watch every single play the Chiefs have. It is alarming how many times Travis Kelsey like his route is just chip block and then like kind of hover for a check down.
yeah
Like they really are only using him on routes for like very important plays. And I'm like, but this was supposed to be the gear that turns the entire offense. If you don't have that, then I'm a little bit
yeah
concerned.
no it's I think their weakness was all their weakness was pretty clear. Their wide receivers. Um,
Hmm.
because their running backs did great. Travis Kelsey did good. I wouldn't say he did great because the Eagles just stuck Byard on him the entire game.
Hmm.
If Kelsey was in the play, he got glued. Like he was still able to make some plays and like escape a couple of times, but he was just the Eagles knew how big of a threat Travis Kelsey is and just did their best to prevent him from doing anything.
Right.
But yeah, just what a great game to watch. That was
nice, clean, fun game. No one gets more credit for passes that don't get completed than Patrick Mahomes. Sorry, I don't know. So many Chiefs fans, or like so many Chiefs like homers in sports media, have been up my butt. Well, not my butt specifically, but have been so like, why does Josh Allen get so much credit for that game for losing against Patrick Mahomes? And I'm like, girl, we're still talking about that play where Patrick Mahomes threw a ball sideways that didn't get completed in a Super Bowl he lost by like 20.
Yeah.
Don't even start this game with me. I will play checkers instead.
With Tom Brady officially retired, Patrick Mahomes is now the NFL's golden boy. So you know that and people can try to deny it, but I'm right. Really just shooting down any other opinion. But they have their golden boy. They're going to always hype him up. They're always going to talk about him. And then after Patrick Mahomes runs his course, they're going to find a new golden boy. And because, it's just what happens.
Right. On following up that note, our Don't Sleep On games. You had Detroit, Chicago, a very bewildering game, to say the least.
This was a game I watched. I was in between this one and who was the other one? I believe the other one it was Seahawks Rams. I went with this one because of just the asinine ending to it. It was like there was touchdowns back and forth a little bit, and the Bears did pull ahead, going into the fourth quarter, and for the beginning part of the fourth quarter, and then last 3 minutes, the Lions scored twice and got a safety. That's kind of awesome.
Oh yeah, I feel bad for the Bears because again, if this was the Cardinals, we would be patting them on the back for for rallying so much, for putting up a fight. But because the Bears came in with slightly more expectations, this just feels so much worse. Because you got 2 picks on Goff, or you got 3 picks on Goff. He almost threw a 4th that would have been a touchdown. And Fields looked better. He looked like where you would have wanted him to be at the start of the year in terms of balancing the footwork with having a couple impressive passes. You see the proof of concept because it's he throws a beautiful deep ball. He actually does have a lot of touch and range on his arm when the situation demands it. The problem is he's just not very good at staying in, it has to happen in motion. There's very few times where he can just stand in the pocket and do it. And it's hard to tell how much of that is he's not being coached well or it's just not in his system to do that. Because I've seen him do it in college, so theoretically he should be able to process that to the NFL, unless it's just truly too fast for him. For the Lions, I think this is a huge game because it's just again, classic Detroit says you lose this game to the Bears and everyone laughs at you and you fall behind the Eagles too far to get the number 1 seed and you might cost yourself a home playoff game and it's a whole thing. So to gut it out and actually, win is very, very impressive.
Yeah, no, it was a lovely rally to watch.
Yes. And so I mentioned earlier, I was I think the Cardinals should stick with Kyler Murray because my biggest worry with him was is the knee going to hamper him? Obviously, when you have a major knee surgery, there's going to be changes in how you play. And your explosiveness won't quite ever be what it is. But he still looks mighty explosive. He still looks dynamic. He still can make insane plays just by basically playing backyard football. And I'm for a team that has so many other needs, and for how good the vibes seem to be between Gannon and Kyler, and how Kyler could have sat out this whole year if he wanted, and he chose not to, and he's choosing to play and playing pretty well, all things considered. like you have too many other needs. You might just want to like stick it out with Kyler, and if it doesn't work out next year, then you go to greener pastures. The problem with the Bears is, okay, Fields is looking good now, but is he looking that much better from where he was last year to justify sticking with him for another year? Like the evaluation process for this has been completely bungled because, well, one, the year started so terribly,
Yeah.
and then he got hurt. So now you basically have to make a critical decision, basically for the direction for in 6 games. And it's like, I don't know. We always talk about teams tanking. We always talk about teams going for quarterbacks, but it's like, look at the state of quarterback play in this league. Look at how few good quarterbacks there are. And it's like, do you really want to roll the dice again when you have someone who is at least interesting?
I think
They're in a sticky situation here.
they're definitely in a sticky situation. First off, your point with the quarterbacks, I think the biggest, not I guess, factor into our current quarterback scene was there was like early 2000s to late 2010s. There was a very distinct quarterback picture with a lot of long-term quarterbacks like Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Eli, fudging McNabb, and stuff. Like these are all like they all had very long stints on teams. And I feel like that disrupted the picture because, like, Big Ben, another one. These were all
Right. There was a pretty stable era for quarterbacks where it's like there was like 12 to 13 quarterbacks who were just there for their team for a while.
yeah. There was like I feel like that kind of had the ability to turn people off of that position. If like think about it, say you're a like high school kid, and your entire life you've been alive. Tom Brady's been playing the quarterback position, and you've known about Big Ben for years. Drew Brees, the works. And it's just like, oh, these are elite level quarterbacks that don't get moved around much. If I want to make sure I get a slot on that team, because there's only one starting quarterback, I'm gonna switch to defense. Because something that's a very good aspect for a defender to have is that quarterback mentality of like, all right, he's looking around here, he's gonna throw in this general direction. I'm playing safety. I know where to I know the mindset. And I feel like that's might. I mean, I'm not saying that's what happened, but I feel like that's a solid theory of like what happened with the quarterback picture. Because I feel like there used to be a lot more elite long-term quarterbacks, and now we're kind of in like we're in the top 10, the middle 10 or middle 12,
Right.
and then you got the bottom.
You know, I think a big part of it is just the economics of the NFL have changed so much. Ever since they added the rookie salary cap, the like most prized possession you can have is the rookie quarterback who's good. Because then it's like, oh, spend like a crazy fool at literally every other position. And it basically forces you to be like decide within 2 years. But the problem is it's like this Bears team has been so jank and mucked up. I'm like, is Fields good? Is he bad? I can't tell whose fault it is if he's not better. Like, again, he looked good in this game, but not like head over shoulders. Like, again, he looks like second year Josh Allen, where they were gutting it out and like clawing their way to 10-6. But the problem is, this is already like he was like that last year. So you're going to do another year like that, especially when you have 2 top picks in a draft with 2 quarterbacks. But at the same time, again, it's just like, I mean, that's the reason why New York fans talk themselves into Daniel Jones. It's like, we can't go back to like just throwing stuff out there. We have a quarterback. Can we just stick with it for a bit, please?
Yeah. No, it also, I feel like the Bears don't have crazy weapons. Like, you know,
right. The team's not great, Chief. Team's not great.
Yeah, like, I feel like without trying too hard, the average fan can list probably one solid player on each team that isn't a quarterback for the vast majority of the NFL. And then you get to the Bears, and it's like, all right, who can you count on that's not Justin Fields?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do like DJ Moore, and I kind of want it to work out because I want him to just quarterback. But my pick was Denver at Minnesota, which I guess again, it's like I think I said this for my Don't Sleep On game because it's like
Yeah.
when you see this on a primetime slot, traditionally you're like, eh. But this one was like two scrappy teams again, kind of living up to the hype. The Broncos are 5-5, which is not something I would have expected going into this year. Like they don't look great. Let's not like over egg the pudding here. Let's not overhype them. But they look like you would have hoped by bringing in Sean Payton. Competent, stable.
Yeah.
The defense has improved to adequate levels. Like it's so funny because it's hard to tell how much better they are because all of their like advanced stats are still fucked up from the 70-point game. Like Russell Wilson isn't quite peak Seahawks Russell Wilson, but it is like okay, we're simplifying it. We're doing what the Seahawks did best: prioritize the run, short passes. It's kind of chaotic. It's rough around the edges, but when it comes to the fourth quarter and things start getting a little zany, Russell Wilson still can kind of sling it. And he seems to finally have a rapport with Cortland Sutton, which is very nice to see.
Yeah.
And yeah, they look way better. On the other side, like, I don't even think Minnesota played that badly. Dobbs had his ups and downs, generally looked competent, save for the final drive where he was just kind of flailing. But to be fair, they only had like 40 seconds left to go the entirety of the field. And it's like, yeah, that's the limitation of a Fitz Magic situation. But honestly, both teams looked incredibly competent. Minnesota's finally able to run the damn ball for a change. The Broncos' defense was impressive in its final stand, and I'm like, I don't know, I just feel really good about both of these teams, and like, I actually wouldn't hate if either of them got to the playoffs, if only because it would be a nice redemption story for Russ to get back to the playoffs.
Yeah. I think, honestly, solid game. You cut out a little bit, so I was like, oh no. I was checking my levels. Yeah. So we hit them high. Let's hit some lows. Let's get real bummers.
Honestly, not that many lows for this week. Like, there's a couple, obviously we're not going to bother talking about the Panthers. Like, there's a couple where we're like, do we really need to talk about these? Like, even the Raiders showed up to play against Miami, which was impressive. But my first is, no, seriously, Washington, what the fuck? The Washington Commanders lose to the New York Giants 31-19. Kind of a rout, to be perfectly honest with you. Like, it was a close game for half, and then New York just kind of exploded in the fourth quarter as Sam Howell, put this diplomatically, kind of soiled himself at the worst possible time. We've joked, you, Kevin, in particular, have joked about it being the New York Saquon Barkleys. It really is like, oh, they're just doing a slightly worse version of what they did last year, where it's like, Saquon, basically any major play is going to come down to you. He ends up having 4 catches for 57 yards and 2 touchdowns, 14 carries for 83 yards. Tommy DeVito, he's not a good quarterback. Like, let's not get silly here. Let's not get zany. But he did, to his credit, have one 40-yard sling that looked really impressive. He had a couple moments where he actually looked like a vaguely baseline level third-string quarterback. He also took 9 sacks, though, so we kind of have to grade this on a curve. I do wish he was better, though, because more and more I think about it. It was the Jersey Mike's. Jersey Mike's just sent him a chicken palm sub after practice, and I'm like, hilarious. God damn it. Why can't this guy have any physical upside whatsoever? He's kind of the perfect New Jersey scumbag quarterback.
Yeah.
That more in terms of vibes, not personality. I assume he's a perfectly nice guy. I should stress that. But like his whole demeanor, I'm like, God, wouldn't this be great if this was one of the New York quarterbacks? But no, unfortunately, he was not gifted the ability to play football at a pro level. This is more a searing indictment of the Washington Commanders. Again, on any given Sunday, but not when you're against the New York Giants. Yeah. Sam Howell threw 3 picks, got 4 sacks. Basically, the team was a turnover machine. Mm-hmm. They lost 3 fumbles. So that totals out to 6 turnovers. And if I'm like Brian Robinson, who actually played really well in this game, if I'm Terry McLaurin, who gutted it out for another like 5 catches for 43 yards, like I would be really fucking pissed. that I mean, I don't know what else to say. It's like, yeah, this is why you're not going to anchor Sam Howell after this year.
Yeah.
That's why there's probably going to be a lot of big changes in this organization as it becomes an organization again. Like, that's why you trade away Montez Sweat and Chase Young, because at the end of the day, it's like, you know, the new owner is just going to dump as much money as he can and basically rebuild the team from scratch in his own image.
Yeah.
And in terms of that image, it'll probably be Robinson, Dotson, Thomas, and McLaurin, and everybody else, get on out.
Yeah. I always like the new ownership coming into the picture because I feel like that just provides opportunities for some like new relationships and maybe some like crazy trades and stuff that you wouldn't expect or crazy acquisitions. That is
Oh,
just
yeah. I mean, that's basically the Russ thing.
yeah. But I'm
The Russ thing was like, hey, there's a new owner trying to buy this team. If we get Russell Wilson, the team will be valued at more.
yeah, but no, it was just a disappointing performance.
Right. Like, it's one of those performances where it starts off bad and you immediately go like, oh no.
Yeah, and
It's going to be one of those kind of games, huh?
yeah, like they had two down to the buzzer / in overtime games with the Eagles this season. Pretty solid wins or fights. The only other game they lost to the Giants twice. Wow, look at that.
That's bad.
That's bad.
And I know Giants fans who are pissed because they really want that number one pick.
Yeah.
And this is the Jets. This is the kind of game where it's like when the Jets beat the Rams and cost themselves Trevor Lawrence and end up getting sacked G.D. Wilson.
Yeah, what a fuck
Like,
up that was.
Right. And it's like, it's so funny that it's like, it truly is how arbitrary all this is. Whereas the Texans, everyone got on their case for winning that game against the Colts to end the year. And it's like, yeah, but they got the good quarterback.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't get Bryce Young. They didn't get Anthony Richardson. They got the good quarterback.
Yeah, and it's just, yeah. This yeah, no, the Washington has, I'm looking at it now. All of their games have been pretty competitive. There was only one time where they were clearly blown out, and that was when they played the Bills.
Oh, yeah. That's when we were five, baby.
Like every other game that, like, this is the next worst blowout that they've had. They lost 40-20 to the Bears, but that's kind of like a whatever. I feel like you can easily get too cocky for it.
Right.
And yeah, and also Washington, they have the Cowboys twice left in the season, and then they also have the Dolphins and the 49ers. Yikes.
Yeah, that's a fun schedule for them.
That is tough, and when you're getting fed games for the notorious this season being bad Giants and Bears, and you're losing those, what the hell?
Yeah, it just really was funny to see how like good the vibes were for the Commanders for a bit, where it's like, oh, this is a scrappy team. Sam Howell's got the scrap, and then you give up. It's really hard to have 3 turnovers in a game. You doubled that.
Yeah. All right.
The
Chargers'
next
pit of sadness gets deeper.
Truly a cosmic team in terms of just bad things happening.
I feel like if we just published our notes, it'd be very easy to tell what are my notes and what are your notes, because my notes are just vague, to the point things, like using as little words as possible, and you just paint a picture.
Yeah, it truly is. Like, it's very bad when the Green Bay Packers treat this like a get-right game. When for their offense, they treat it like a get-right game. Jordan Love, who has looked better in recent weeks, but still isn't, like, he still needs some development, goes 27 of 40 for 322 yards and 2 touchdowns. They get 23 points. The Chargers have multiple chances to come back in this game. and simply just cannot. They have multiple drives that end up like turnovers on downs, weird, like, you know, like 3 and outs. The final drive, they have a third and I believe it was 6, where Quentin Johnson fumbles the ball. And he's kind of the guy I wanted to bring up for all this because it's like this franchise is just this game just underlines how like messy and poorly managed this franchise is. They hung on to Austin Eckler for too long, and now he just looks very run down. And they didn't really like Quentin Johnson, who's now getting compared to Jules. I always forget his first name. I always just call him Rager. Like he's getting unfairly compared to him. It's like Quentin Johnson was a developmental prospect. He had size, speed. He was great in yards after catch, but he didn't have the best hands. He didn't run the best routes. He was a developmental guy who would take 2 or 3 years to be like a full-fledged starter. But the Chargers were not in a position to draft a guy like that. They needed a guy who could plug in and play because Keenan Allen's getting a little older because Mike Williams is injury prone. Mm-hmm. And now you have a guy who is not ready to be out there playing critical minutes and having these terrible drops and just having these horrible moments. You bring in Brandon Staley, who's supposed to be this like genius defensive mind, and bring in guys like Khalil Mack. You bring in like Vance Joseph. You bring in all of these like sort of big names, but guys who are getting a little longer in the tooth. Because it's like, well, Herbert is our offense, so we need to build our defense, and yet that doesn't even work. I get on the Bills for spending all this stuff on defense, but at least when everyone was healthy, the defense was consistently top 10. Yeah. The Chargers defense is a turnstile right now, and now Brandon Staley looks like he's just like is getting antagonistic with like interviewee like people who are interviewing him, and it really is just like it feels like the bottom is about to fall out. Like, you already paid Justin Herbert, so, like, now you're a little limited in how you can build the franchise. I do love the GM pointed out, he was like, I was in Indianapolis when we had Peyton Manning. We always gave him big bucks. And it's like, all right, cope, dude. You kind of wasted, Justin Herbert basically came in and had, like, a borderline Dan Marino-esque start to his career, and you kind of wasted that. You made the playoffs once. But, no, keep making yourself feel better, I guess. And yeah, it's just kind of, this is the most Chargery season that ever Chargered, because it was like, this will finally be the year. It can't get any worse than giving up like a 30-point lead in the playoffs. And it's like, no, it can get worse. It can always get worse. Never doubt it can get worse.
Idea for the offseason, we just rewatch and react to crazy games like that one. Ones that we have no actual stakes in.
Oh. Huh, I like that.
Like, we won't rewatch like the Eagles Super Bowl or any previous Eagles game. We won't watch any Bills Super Bowls or Bills games, but it's just like that game or when the Giants upset the Patriots and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, I like that.
I feel like that'd be fun. I feel like that also would be a fun thing to do. Let us know in the comments if you want to see that happen.
Oh, yeah. Our other note is, okay, maybe the Seahawks are in trouble. I realized you wrote Washington, and then I added to that.
Yeah.
This was a tough game for the Seahawks, and like a team I was very bullish on. I'm playoffs now. They had a lead going into the fourth, gave up 10 points to the Rams, who are scrappy, but again, they're not great.
Yeah.
Kenneth Walker got hurt again. Geno Smith got simply crushed. There's no other way to put it diplomatically. Aaron Donald simply crushed that man, which is funny because there was that play from week 1, I think, where Aaron Donald charged straight at Geno Smith, and you heard Geno Smith go, "Oh my God," as he like spikes the ball down. Geno hurt his elbow. It's so funny because all these Seahawks fans have wanted Drew Lock to come in. He goes 2 of 6 for 3 yards and an interception. Again, it takes a lot to stand out in this year of kind of bad quarterback play, but he did. Mm-hmm. And then this very confusing ending where they're marching downfield. They just need like one more like 7 to 12 yard completion to kind of get into good field goal range. Geno claims his helmet like went out, so he wasn't getting the play. So he just calls a run, spikes the ball, and they're forced to kick like a 55-yard field goal to lose it. They have a very going over their schedule. They're still 6-4, which is a good, but they have to play the 49ers, the Cowboys, the 49ers again, the Eagles, and then their last 3 games are Titans, Steelers, Cardinals, which will be a little easier. But like, there's a real chance you lose all 4 of those games, and then you're just out of the playoffs.
Yeah, no.
Like, your only saving grace is divisional games tend to be chaotic, so maybe you can get one from the 49ers, but like, your window of opportunity is closing faster than I would have thought.
Yeah, I think, like, yeah, they've got, the Eagles have been running a gauntlet the last couple of games and still for a couple more, but I feel like this is also a worse gauntlet. I think they would be able to sneak a win off of the 49ers in the first game they play.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they would be able to sneak it in the second one. Also, 2 back-to-back Thursday games, side note.
Huh.
Well, one's Thanksgiving, but, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, so Seahawks, like, I feel like they're also just a very solid team. Like, you got your scrappy teams like the Rams, where no one's going to claim that they're the best, but they can definitely put on a performance. And then you're like Seahawks, it's like they're going to be over 500. I'm not saying they're going to be like significantly over 500, but they're probably going to be over 500.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're pretty much on pace for that already. But they're going to have a
It would really have to bottom out not to be 500, but the avenue to the playoffs just gets so much harder because, like, you're just going up again. You really couldn't afford to lose both games to the Rams. Like, this year, a lot of teams are really going to... The tiebreaker of, like, conference, not just division, is really going to come into play here. And if you have that many losses in your conference, especially as you're going up against the Eagles and the 49ers and the Cowboys, like, you're not going to have a lot of favor. Like, you're going to need other people to screw things up for you.
Yeah, no. It's like I said, odds are the NFC wildcard picture, it's going to be second place for the East, almost guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
Probably second place for the West. And then everyone's going to be fighting for that last playoff spot. But if you think about it, like, the Vikings kind of are like, they're knocking at the door going, hello, we're still here. This is their first loss in a while that the Vikings just had. And it's going to be like 4 teams fighting for 3 spots.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how that's going to go. Because none of the rest of most of the NFC is still in it, too. Like,
mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say anyone, because it's really been such a mid-division this season.
Yeah, it's weirdly been a bit of a letdown, honestly.
Or conference, and it's just so it's like you've got a bunch of teams that will be spending the rest of their season fighting.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, let's just talk about some other things that have been happening around.
Yes,
I feel like this is an important part to bring up to you specifically. That Desmond wins QB1 again.
Yes, he is being put back as the starter for the Falcons. They are saying all the right things. They're talking about how he just needed a reset. He just needed, like, to have a minute to breathe. I just, to be fair, Heineke didn't really do that much for you. He kind of underperformed. So it's not like you have... So you're not really having a lot of... you don't have a lot of tasty options here. You're kind of just working with what you got. The problem is what you got isn't very good, and you already knew that, but you have to commit.
Mm-hmm.
A similar situation, the Wilson era is over. Yet again, Jets. Never get into the Aaron Rodgers business. Like, I'm so glad, like I said last week, I'm so glad people have woken up to the fact that this team was never serious about winning. They were serious about getting Aaron Rodgers on their team. And that means you're not serious about winning because Aaron Rodgers is not serious about winning. Again, like, people forget that before his 2 MVP seasons, he looked done. He just looked like he was fed up with the team. He wasn't particularly interested. He only started playing well again, basically when, one, as Devontae Adams, but also because he was mad about them drafting Jordan Love and wanted to prove a point. So he won one MVP and then basically got another MVP handed to him because they refused to give it to Cooper Kupp. Yes, I will die burning fire about that. And yeah, he's clearly more interested in being a sideshow than an actual NFL quarterback. That was clear in his last year in Green Bay. It was clear in his second to last year in Green Bay, and it's very clear now. And so, of course, this was how it was all going to end. I didn't talk about the Bills game. I will just say, like, I don't know. It's like, yeah, the offense has looked good the whole year. They just didn't have any turnovers this game. I will say there was a lot more. It feels like they took out some or brought in some more artisanal play calls, for lack of a better word, like play calls that like play around with motion more, that play around with spacing more. I definitely feel like they at least. I feel like they understand the flaws of the offense and at least are trying to correct them. Like they're realizing, like, okay, our receiving core is not nearly as talented as it needs to be, so we're going to have to really break out like the good stuff to get them open. We're going to have to scheme them open. It's not going to be, they're not just going to. We can't just have plays where Josh Allen drops back with 5 wide receivers spread out and hope one of them gets open. That's just not going to be a reliable way of doing it. We're either going to need motion or scheme or creativity. The throw Josh Allen made for an 80-yard touchdown where he basically just threw a straight line past Sauce Gardner, and then, Shakir did the rest of the work. Truly one of the most beautiful passes I've seen all year. But yeah, so I kind of feel bad for Zach Wilson. Like, he didn't draft himself, he got stuck in a pretty crappy.
Yeah. He got put in such a silly spot. And Carter once again cut out for Carter is listening on the other line. All right, there you go. But he got put. It's not like he got put behind some like a team that has like a longevity QB. Like he wasn't hanging out behind Kirk for a bunch of years. He wasn't hanging out behind even Rodgers for a bunch of years. He got thrown into the thick of it with the Jets, and I feel like he's not the right guy for the job, as the Jets have declared, apparently.
Right.
And it's just...
He does not have enough leadership to make up for the lack of talent.
Yeah.
Like, and again, this team, like, the receiving core outside of Garrett isn't great. Right? Hall is a good running back, but, like, their offensive line is very, very bad, and he just... Like, it is truly amazing how he's played for 3 years and completely stagnated in terms of, like, just never being able to get past the fact that his offensive line isn't very good.
Yeah.
And that they haven't built a better offensive line around him.
That's also true. That's kind of both of them. But it's like, I feel like he has... That's his biggest flaw, is the offensive line. And it's just like, he doesn't have enough... I don't know what the word... I think I'm going to just say chutzpah. To deal with that inadequacies. Because if you're watching Patrick Mahomes, his offensive line is collapsing. He finds a way to still make a play. If you're watching Tua, he's got some solid weapons, just like Zach Wilson does. Well, Tua has better weapons, but he's got people he could throw to, like Zach Wilson does. And when his offensive line's imploding, he still will find a way to at least attempt to make a play. And he doesn't have it. He doesn't have the razzmatazz. He doesn't have the old gut. The dog inside of him is a cat. All
right, that's pretty funny. But yeah, it's like he's all of that stuff in theory without any of the actual, like,
execution.
Like, yeah, without any of the development, without any of the sort of limitless physical potential. Like, yeah, it's just a stagnated version of that.
Yeah. Alrighty. The AFC North Civil War results. I felt like this was because we mentioned it last week, so we should definitely talk about what has happened since we recorded last week. Because, boy, howdy, things happened.
Yes. So the Baltimore-Cincinnati game, that is a game that didn't live up to the hype, not because of players, but because playing on Thursday night is clearly not a good idea and people get hurt.
Yes.
Joe Burrow pretty like a little more than like a little closer to halftime. Had to
Yeah,
just come out of the game, attempted a throw, and just realized his hand didn't have it. He is out for the rest of the year with, I believe, is it a ligament problem? I believe it
I think
is.
it is a ligament problem. It's maybe a tendon of
Wrist.
something. Yeah, it's a problem where I think the best way to like describe it is when you're watching him take a test pass on the sideline, and the dude is maybe 5 yards max away from him, and you see him hold it. He looks all right, but when he goes to let go of the ball, it just drops like a
Mhm.
toddler throwing a frisbee for the first time. I'm I'm trying to think of some great analogies. It's one of those things where because like he also is able to trot to the back like no problem. He rushes back there to see if he can get something ahead of time, and it's one of those things where it's just like if he was playing in like an a lineman position or some other position, he might be able to get away with it for the
Mhm.
finish out the game, maybe the season, or take it light on the season and not really have to worry about it. But this is a freaking dense problem for a QB position, and you hate to see it.
Right. Yes.
Also,
On the other side,
I was gonna say, speaking of
oh,
injuries, about an hour after we stopped recording the last one, Deshaun Watson out.
just full on out. They still have to pay him because it's guaranteed, if y'all remember. Look, obviously, I have talked a lot about my contempt for Deshaun Watson as a person, my contempt at sort of the NFL punditry for trying to make it about football again, and for the Browns for selling their souls. But you never wish for injuries. That is what I will say.
Yeah,
Incidentally, Kevin, have you ever watched the new DuckTales series?
I've watched an episode here or there. I like the
So
theme
there's an
song.
episode. Oh yes. So there's an episode where Scrooge McDuck's rival Glumgold kind of tries to gaslight him into going crazy, resulting in him seemingly dying. There is a funeral. It's very sad. It's very like moody. Everyone's taking, it's played very straight. And then Glumgold kicks down the door in a white and gold suit, as all I do is win, 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 no matter what, is blaring over the sort of scene. I don't know why I'm thinking about that right at this specific moment. And that's all I have to say about that. But yeah, Cleveland. What's insane is they still might make the playoffs because the defense is just that good. They won this week.
Through a
Like,
field goal.
yes, through a field goal, through Pittsburgh just truly being anarchy incarnate, with 163 yards passing and 96 rushing. They are going. I don't want to say they're phonies because the defense is too good to be called phonies.
Yeah, the
But my
offense is a bunch
God,
of
what?
phonies.
Yes.
All right,
Um,
listen to Dorian Thompson Robinson, which what a hell of a long name. Um, his stats, he went 24 for 43 for 165 yards, one interception.
all right. To their credit, they seem to understand that they really need to. It really needs to be that we might just run the ball 3 times every other drive. We really need. It's really going to be dependent on us getting like a safety or getting an interception in enemy territory and kicking a field goal.
Yeah,
Like they at least seem to be sober. Like it's not like the Jets who are trying or in denial about what's happening to their season. They very much seem aware of like the direness of what they're up against.
yeah. It's they know they're in trouble, and I feel like it's I feel like a bit how they built up their defense has put them in a spot where they might not be clearly winning games, as an example of this last week,
Mhm.
but they're definitely going to be able to hold their own. the interesting games for them, because honestly, they have a relatively light rest of season. They got the Broncos, Rams, Bears, Jets, and Joe Burrowless Bengals left. Along with, I think their two toughest teams are going to be when they play the AFC South teams. They got the Jaguars and they got the Texans. And I feel like those are going to be the two teams where they just have to hold their points down. As we talked about at the beginning of the season, the Texans' offensive line has had work done, and they clearly have worked things out pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
But the Browns' defensive line is pretty up there in quality, if you ask me.
Yes. Honestly, it's so funny. It was a classic AFC North bloodbath this week. The Bengals lose Burrow, the Ravens lose Mark Andrews to an ankle injury.
Too.
The Browns now are just going to play a season without an offense effectively. Although, again, it wasn't as if Watson was playing out of his mind before. And I really don't know what they're going to do because...
I don't think his entire stint on the Browns, he has played an entire full season's worth of games.
Incredible. On top of the fact, it's like now we are going to go into a fourth year of him not playing at a Pro Bowl level, and that's what he took an entire year off. He was suspended for over half a year.
The farm, the cow, the sheep, you sold everything to the Texans to get him. And you got fleeced hard.
Truly. It's okay, he was suspended for that entire 1 year. He played 6 games the second year, and this third year he's going to miss half the season because of injuries. So really, year 4, after missing all this time, he's suddenly going to be a good quarterback again, even though he was really only a good quarterback for 2 years before then, but I digress. And the Steelers also now finally fired their offensive coordinator.
Yes.
And good. I mean, I feel bad for him because he's had to work with Big Ben, sort of punch-drunk Big Ben Roethlisberger, whose body simply, they had to exclusively go from shotgun because he lacked he could not drop back properly anymore in terms of his footwork and stuff. Then Mason Rudolph, then Kenny Pickett. He's not gotten a smorgasbord of offensive weapons, but at the same time, you have to at least do something with that. Mm-hmm. Will it be better? I do think it'll be the Bills thing of surely the vibes will get better at least. Color shift might be enough to carry the team for a little bit.
Yeah. It's such I'm trying to think of the best way to describe my thoughts. This division was so competitive before this week, and now all the balls collided and they're going off in different directions now.
Right.
And there's injuries because they were bowling balls. Sure, why not? Yeah, it's crazy. And I think for as good as this division has shown to be, there is going to be a lot of firings coming from it. Mm-hmm. Exhibited by Matt Canada. I don't think the Broncos are going to do any firings. Or not the Broncos, sorry. I thought of another point, and I wanted to double-check my facts, and I looked up the Broncos, so I was thinking of them. But it's the Ravens probably won't do any firings. Pittsburgh has already done their first firing in the middle of a season since 1940s.
Again, they are it's the Steelers culture thing. It's we can laugh at them for being so committed to consistency, but it is well, to be fair, they have a winning record every other year.
Yeah. And then you got bad luck Bengals. Huge threat to dog.
Yeah, I feel bad for the Bengals because it's this might have been their last chance with this group because T. Higgins is going to get number 1 wide receiver money, and it's like, can they really afford to give both
Yeah.
him and Chase number one receiver money?
No, that's their biggest problem. I feel like they have enough depth. It's very minimal depth, but they have just enough that if they lose one or two people in offense to like better contracts,
Mm.
they're not totally out of the game yet. However, if they lose more than two of any given position on the offense, I think they're fucked.
Mm.
Like they have just enough. Um, I don't. And then you have the Browns who have awarded the freaking Texans the steal of the century. Like on
Truly.
the Eagles subreddits and stuff, people talk about it's like, oh, Jalen Hurts in the third round or whatever round he was drafted in, what a steal. Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, what a steal. Same with like Tom Brady. This is the heist of the century. If those are all steals, this was the heist of the century.
Yeah, it really is, because it's like, oh, you basically have all of the resources you need to rebuild your franchise. You've already gotten two of the critical pieces, and you have a coach. And yeah, it just truly a complete karma shift for the entire franchise,
Yeah.
for those two franchises. Um,
Uh,
which, as we transition out of
Hold
that,
on. I just
our
have
question. Oh,
one more thing I want to bring up, and I think this is pretty big. That's why I was looking up Broncos stuff. Um, Broncos defensive back Kareem Jackson has a 4-game suspension for just being too unsafe. Too many hits to the like head, specifically the one on Josh Dobbs, is what gave him this suspension. And I'm
no.
trying to see, and I think this is like his second suspension in a crazy amount of time. So I don't know about it how much, but it's just like what a what a crazy stat.
Yeah, I don't know, because like for all the fines this year and all the penalties against like defenders for various hits, it's like you gotta
There
really
it is.
try to get suspended for this.
Second time. His last suspension was week 7 because we brought it up, and he got ejected in the game, and he was at the time $89,000, over $89,000 worth of fines. I want to see how much money this man owes. Cause
Yeah, I man, come on. Um, as we transition into our question of the week, what would it take for you to give a non-quarterback the MVP?
oh, what would it take for me?
Mm,
Next to nothing.
thank you. I feel like this is one topic we're on the exact same.
So for those of you who haven't heard my takes too much, first off, field goals win games. Big kicker guy, and also I love the people in the trenches, like the offense and defensive line, and then the safeties. Safeties are my respect. Shout out to Ed Reed Blankenship. Um, it would take next to nothing. It's part of the reason why I started the don't sleep on game is because obviously the quarterbacks are going to get all the credit. And
Yeah,
like
this year's court, like the fact that like the top five favorite guys this year are quarterbacks, despite quarterback play generally being down. I'm just like, what are we doing here?
yeah, it's it would take literally nothing. I would in a heartbeat give it to like whoever kicked the furthest field goal of the season, especially if it's a record breaker. You got my pick. Um, or what if like a defensive lineman just has a phenomenal season? Like if if Jalen Carter caught when he dove for the Chiefs spiking the ball in the fourth quarter,
We were this close to greatness.
if he caught that, I
We
would
were on
have
the
been
pinnacle of
camp.
something
I would have
beautiful.
gone onto every member of the NFL Players Association's Twitter and told them to pick this man just for that play.
Again, we were on the pinnacle of greatness.
Yeah,
It was right there.
yeah. In his defense, he at least tried.
Yeah, it's bolder than most people.
Yeah,
Um, but
but yeah, it would take me next to nothing to give a non QB the MVP.
yeah, for me, it is like, I don't know. Like any year someone breaks a major record, I feel like to, I feel like it deserves it. Like again, Cooper Cup was the third person since the merger to do the Triple Crown. It's
Yes.
insane that he didn't get it. Like we have a very real scenario where we could see either a the receiving yards record being broken, the touchdown record being broken, or the single season sack record being broken by Tyreek Hill, Christian McCaffrey, and Miles Garrett, respectively.
Yes.
If any of those three pull it off, I'm like, what do we do? It has to go to them. Like
It'll
again,
never, like, Christian McCaffrey's the one that has the best case.
mhm.
Tyreek Hill has another great case, too. It will never go to Miles Garrett.
Which is stupid.
Yeah, no.
Like again, he is single. He's almost single. We talk about like one man army this league. He is genuinely dragging this team to the playoffs. Their defense does not work if
Oh,
he's
yeah.
not the lead guy.
No. I feel, once his contract is up, he's going to get quarterback money from the. If the Browns want to keep him, he's going to get quarterback money. And then they're just going to draft someone that'll play the entire season. Um,
If only.
but no, he's one of those people that is so damn good at what he does. The second he gets unhappy with his spot on the team, with any of the coaches, owners, whoever, it's like the situation I said for Justin Jefferson at the beginning of the season, where he just has to send out a vague tweet of, I'm going on vacation. Any ideas where I should go? Winky face. And dude's going to get so many offers that he's going to get quarterback money. Because he's not like a one and done person either. He's been pretty top tier his entire stint.
Mhm.
But yeah. All right. Shall we get to next week?
Oh, yes. So, first off, no buys this week.
Correct.
A rare buyless week this late into the season. We have the NFL. We have NFL history with the first game on Black Friday. The NFL has taken over half the week this week with Thursday, Friday,
Yes.
Sunday, and Monday games.
I
Um,
I'm kind of excited for a Black Friday game. I think that's a nice touch.
I Yeah, it's like I guess it's a fun gimmick. It's like I don't know, like I always liked Saturday night football games after the college season's over, so I don't mind I don't mind having a change of pace and having something new
Yeah.
to try out. I do feel bad for the Jets though
Oh,
that it is
it's Jets versus Dolphins.
Tim Boyle, who I believe in his first 3 years at college before he transferred, had 0 touchdowns, 1 touchdown, 3 touchdowns while playing.
Yeah.
His stats from the NFL to college are dire, to say the least. But he's friends with Aaron Rodgers, so he gets to be the third string quarterback, who's now the starter.
Ooh, what a situation that
Truly,
they put themselves in.
yes, a situation they exclusively done did to themselves. Maybe they'll get lucky and they'll be able to do what the Browns do and just like get a bunch of turnovers. But
See,
Sun's getting real low.
this is why. Here's why I didn't put this as my don't bother game, because it was a fighting contender.
Mhm.
First off, it's the first thing, so they definitely planned this
Right.
out.
You gotta respect history.
They planned it out for the season, so a game like this is only gonna leave room for improvement or kill off the concept of a Black Friday game. There's no real in between. Um,
Mhm.
the theory of, if Aaron, like when they booked it, Aaron Rodgers in the Jets versus division, same division, Miami Dolphins has money value on the card. Like, that's something you can sell tickets to, and despite it being a completely different game of the week, you're kind of like you're setting yourself up for like a solid game. It's kind of like how I
Mhm.
think that the Chiefs Eagles got put on Monday night this week to set people up for excessive amounts of football, because you're going in Thanksgiving week hot in terms of football.
Mhm.
But man, if I was in, like, I don't really support shifting games time slots, or support shifting game time slots. I don't support shifting game days, because you plan, like, when you buy those tickets at the beginning of the season, you plan your entire week plus around that.
Exactly.
So moving those games around, I feel like it, like, to different days, while it would be ideal in my like how I book the NFL game, um the games, it's I respect them not moving this one,
Mhm.
because these are games that, like, you're playing. If you're going to this game, you're planning your life around this. Where's it being played? Miami? No, it's in New York. Huh. Fun.
The epitome of the holidays, New York City.
And the Jets most likely will lose.
Badly, yes.
All's
Um,
good.
yes, and we also have another civil war on our hand, the
Yes.
Castpod Civil
Building
War.
the Caspod Civil War. I'm
For the first time in 4 years, the Buffalo Bills play the Philadelphia Eagles.
specifically the Kelly Green Philadelphia Eagles. That's right. Kelly Green game 2 of the season is versus the Bills for the Caspod Civil War, and
Yes,
I'm excited about it. Carter,
yeah.
do we want
I'm
to?
like, do we say anything lest we jinx it?
No, I do not want to talk about any possibilities for that game or anything like that. Based off of some of the other games this week that they have planned, solid, solidish time slot. I think
Mhm.
that the Monday night game and Sunday night game could be better matchups, or actually, I'm pretty happy with the Thanksgiving games. I'll talk about that in a second though. Yeah, but it's got the 4:25 time slot. I feel like that's nothing to be mad about. That's a solid time slot for that game, which it doesn't have conference stakes, and it should be a game to watch. I'll say that in less of that.
Sound agreed.
So my only question about it is, Carter, you want to get on a Skype call for it?
Oh God, I maybe I'll see how I'm feeling that
I
morning because
probably
I
have
might
to.
be antsy as all hell.
I probably have to work the following day, so I can't drink for it. So I'll be at least coherent. Uh, yeah.
Jesus.
Before we get into our don't bothers and stuff, and don't sleep on games, I think they did a very good job at lining up this Thanksgiving schedule. Actually,
Oh yeah, it's a part of it helps that the Lions are fun to watch, which is like a core of it.
yeah,
But Lions playing Green Bay, the Green Bay Packers offense looking a little spikier as the Detroit Lions defense has been a little off kilter.
yeah,
We got Dallas Commanders, which is again, if you're going to have the Cowboys on, have them in a because those always get feisty.
yeah.
And then 49ers Seahawks, three teams who are fighting for that number one seed in the NFC, and three teams who will put on a scrappy performance even if they don't win.
Yes, I like. I feel like the games go up in quality as it goes on.
Mhm.
Um, and they're all divisional games, which is nice. So they all, like, actually kind of mean something.
Hmm.
and they're all very notable, or at least each game has one just very notable team. Like Packers and Lions have reputations.
Right.
They've always had reputations, even through like the Brett Favre era and beforehand with the Packers and the Lions. They're having a hell of a year. America's team, the Dallas Cowboys, whatever. Um, Honestly, putting them on Thanksgiving, like against the Commanders, where theoretically the Commanders will put up a an attempt of a fight. It depends if they play like they did last week.
Hmm.
Solid pick. And then Seahawks 49ers kind of fighting for that number 1 slot of the division. Hell of a way to end the night. And you go home, you fall asleep hopefully happy from that game, and you don't bother paying attention to the Black Friday game for this year. All right, so let's get into our don't bother games. Would you care to go
Yes,
first?
you picked.
All right.
Yeah, I'll pick mine. Atlanta, New Orleans. Mine is NFC South. You're putting Desmond Ritter back in. We've seen this play before. Like, I really don't think it's going to be that different. And I just like again, I feel like I'm just leaning into the bit of like, no, we need to get even angrier about the NFC South. This is ridiculous. One of these teams is going to get to go to the playoffs. Like the entire AFC is tearing itself apart just to get the seventh wildcard spot, and one of these teams gets a home game.
Yeah.
I
It's
feel like we need to be
pitiful.
angry. I know we've been angry about it for years, but we need to be even angrier.
Yeah, no, it's some it's there's that yeah, that's one of those games where it's just like, come on, man.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so my game is Patriots Giants. So I know what people are thinking. Kevin, why didn't you put the Bears Vikings? Because it's at one of those top time slots. Or Ravens Chargers. That's going to be a blowout. This season, as much as I'm not a fan of, as much as I think that Lamar Jackson's overrated, the Ravens have definitely earned a Sunday night football time slot. They just happen to
Mm-hmm.
be playing the Chargers, uh, who leave a lot to be desired. Would I have preferred it to be a different game? Yes. Am I upset it's the Ravens Chargers? Yes. Would I be upset if it was like Ravens Browns? No. And Bears Vikings, they both had rough starts. The Vikings seem to be on the mend. I feel like this is going to be a nice pacer test for the Vikings because they played a couple of weeks ago
Mm-hmm.
and they barely won. I'm curious to see how things will lead after that. So,
I like it.
but yeah, Giants Patriots.
A basically deciding who will get a top 3 or 4 pick in this draft.
It really is. This is kind of like you're getting to the bottom of the soup pot and you're not sure what is just burnt and what is actually supposed to be food. Um, they have a combined total of 5 wins and 16 losses. Um, and I feel like I don't need to say much more about it. Both teams have been doing dog shit this year.
Truly only interesting again to decide who gets a better draft pick and like how serious either team is actually tanking.
This is one of those games where if you go back to like when the Giants played the Patriots in the Super Bowl and you tell somebody and you're just like, "Hey, they're going to play this game in a very reasonable amount of time where a lot of people will still remember that Super Bowl and everyone's going to be mad that they're watching it." Yep. That's why that's my take. Uh
I like it. It's a reasonable take. I just like the Schadenfreude of it,
yeah.
which is why I might bother with it.
Yeah, and it's also just a game of revolving quarterbacks. Patriots have gone through a handful this season. Giants have gone through some this season too. It is go. I'm excited to watch Saquon Barkley versus freaking what's his name versus Stevenson.
Ramondre
I
Stevenson.
yeah, I was gonna
Yeah,
try and pronounce his
again,
first name and I didn't have that dog in me.
truly like the hodgepodge, actually really good running backs who definitely deserved better than this.
Yeah, that's what the game is going to be. It's going to be designated QB for the Patriots, handing it to Stevenson. Designated QB for the Giants, handing it to Saquon. And you ever watched the episode of South Park where Randy is making fun of all like how soft football, like Pee Wee football's gotten, and is makes like sarcastic and he just
Mhm.
comes up with all these stupid rules, and it's like somebody gets the ball and everyone else is hugging around him and being nice. I feel like that if that was to happen to a game this season, it'd be this one, where they just hand off the ball and all the defenders and of other people on the offense will just hug while he
Mhm.
goes as far as he's comfortable with, and then stops.
Yeah, it's not gonna be a fun one, folks. You hope better days are ahead for both of these franchises, but not looking great to start.
Oh man, I'm so excited to see which one gets Caleb Williams though.
Oh, please, no. Well, I mean, wouldn't it be nice to have a good quarterback in New York? But on the other hand, well, quote unquote, New York. We already have a good quarterback in New York. But
We want to have a
um,
good quarterback in New Jersey.
yeah, wouldn't it be nice to have a good quarterback in New Jersey? I don't know. I just feel like either of these teams get the pick, they're going to screw it up somehow.
All right.
Literally the only team I have any faith in with their top pick is inexplicably the Cardinals,
Yeah, it's kind of wild how that works
which
out.
I'm like, man, that's not a thing you would have said literally 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, honestly, get Kyler a good receiver, and
Yeah, put Marvin Harrison with him, and that's actually a very
that's that's solid. That's a solid. Like,
for our don't. Oh yeah,
yeah, I was gonna say that giving Kyler a top tier receiver is kind of a game changer. Anyway,
now for our don't sleep on games, you have the floor.
yeah, I definitely wanted to go first because I feel like yours is a lot more of a hot take than mine.
Mm.
We've talked about both teams a lot this season, and various don't mostly don't sleep on games. A lot of it is by me, some of it's by Carter too. I went with Jacksonville, Houston. I know, no surprise there. But this is a game. First off, it is the rematch of the year where Texans kind of smoked the Jaguars, and like that's kind of what started putting them on the map for the season. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and now they're on a fucking tear, and this could be the battle for the AFC South right here, because if the Texans win, that bumps them up to 7-4, Jacksonville down to 7-4, and Texan has 2 wins in their games, so that puts them in that number one slot.
Hmm.
And the Jaguars have been secretly very good this season. So I feel like what a combination to watch.
Yeah, I like that one. It's kind of like it really is like
It is a high
it really
stakes
is
game.
like a yeah, it's a high stakes game and it's very much a game based on our specific tastes for this season.
Yes.
Like I want to see the Texans win a division, damn it, and this is our easiest path to get there.
Also, another like little note about it, I guess. The Texans are at home. The Texans' home record is 4-1. Jacksonville's away record is 4-0.
Huh.
So technically speaking, how they play, they are both teams are playing at their ideal location.
That is fascinating actually.
Yeah, and if you, also points for and against, um, points for the Texans have only 8 more points for them than the Jaguars, and they only have 4 more points against them. So these guys are pretty damn equal. And I feel like if you want to talk about a game that defines the don't sleep on games, this is definitely one of them. There
Hmm.
is there is so many stakes to this. There's so much potential. Both teams are pretty hot this season, and it's got a 1 o'clock time slot.
Oh yeah, they actually moved it up, I believe.
From what?
They inexplicably. It was supposed to be at 4. They moved another
Okay.
game there.
Oh,
No, they didn't move it out of a primetime slot.
yeah. That's what my question was. If like this, obviously not this season because it of how both teams have their past. But if this has the potential, like if these teams keep on the paces they're going, like next year, this
Hmm.
game could be a Sunday night, Monday night, or Thursday night quality game.
Oh yeah.
All right, now let's get into yours because I am heavily interested in it.
Yeah, so for me, my argument is pretty simple. It is two teams, the Arizona Cardinals and LA, who have kind of exceeded expectations at different tiers. The Cardinals, people were talking about them genuinely not winning a game this year. They were like, this is a team throwing out the baby with the bathwater, truly burning it down. And yet, despite only having 2 wins, it's hard to say they're not scrappy. It's hard to say they're not fighting, and it's hard to say they're not like putting in the best effort. A team that at least has talent all around the team, just not enough at any one spot to really overcome anything. Um, but like, if they're going to get another win this season, a weird, fluky divisional game seems to be the path forward. The Rams, on the other hand, were another team that were expected to be drafting in the bottom 5. They were expected to be kind of in a rebuild mode, mostly trying to sell Stafford, McVay, and Darnold on not retiring, despite like all the rumors around all three of them. And yet they've won 4 games. They've had a couple. They've had a couple foolish losses here and there. Stafford getting injured does put like a damper on things, along with Cup getting injured again. But when this team is at full health, you see the spine of the thing. You see the stars and scrubs sort of take into its logical extreme of like 2 great wide receivers, a great quarterback, and one of the best defensive players to ever do it, and just going for it. Both teams have exceeded expectations, and whether or not they can call it success or a failure, I think is like kind of hinged on games like this. Can you pull these kind of games out against your division opponents?
Yeah. Depending how this game goes, honestly, I'm gonna predict it right now. If this is a good game, it'll definitely win the don't sleep on game for this week. However, if this game turns out bad, it'll exclusively be in the lows.
Oh, yeah. It could be a bummer. I'm taking a risk. I'm sticking my neck out for it.
Yeah, solid picks though. Also, I feel like another kind of not really an honorable mention at this point, but because things have gone to shit, it was Steelers Bengals could have been good
Oh, yeah.
pre Joe Burrow's
Could
injury
have.
and all that jazz and razzmatazz.
What a sucky thing to happen to the NFL.
Yeah, it's because they're playing on turf. That's why.
Yeah. That's why his hand looked like a balloon. That was actually a pretty egregious injury in the Bills game this week. Bone was visible. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, no, that
Um,
was a rough one. Thank God they took down the Damar Hamlin ambulance jerseys.
they really gotta chill
Oh
with the
my
hit. Like,
God, that
look,
was
they really just gotta tone it down in general. They gotta stop cutting anytime there's an injury.
they really
Maybe
do.
like 1 or 2 less like pieces. Like, I just
The, this is one of those
there's no good
cases.
way to handle this, but it
Yeah,
feels like they're handling it the worst way.
no, this is one of those things where they are 100% doing it for views. Because, like, first off, he fucking died on the field. That is a traumatic experience. And then
Let's bring it up every time we can.
every time we can, they bring it up when they're anytime they have the freaking his jersey hanging in the ambulance as he's on the sideline for the play, like able to see it. And then it's like every single time they're just cutting to him, and he's just like, he was in one for all the people on the field. He was in the shittiest position, not like player wise, but it's like he's dying on the field actively, and to have the amount of that was broadcasted is ridiculous, and to constantly re-bring it up now, like
Yeah, it's how do you do
it's
something grosser than when the NFL had its whole like stand up to racism campaign as they were still actively blackballing Colin Kaepernick from the league? How do you top that?
yeah, it's one of those things where it's just like I don't want to try and make like a reference, but it's like definitely don't ignore that it happened, but don't keep acknowledging it.
Yeah, it's just very.
Anyway,
But
send us home, Carter.
I hate to end on a bummer, but this is going to be another exciting week for the league. I think once again there are a couple very high-profile matches this week that will kind of dictate the playoff picture. That will like for the first time next week. I really feel like the stakes will be elevated for every single team. Certain teams will have a comfortable position going into the playoffs, and others will start to feel that hot seat. But until then, thank you so much for listening, and we can't wait to talk to you next week.
Yeah.